everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Brief. As someone who has been on the side of seeking jobs, I personally had questions I could ask a hiring manager directly, but I've gotten you all covered. In this episode, we are going to look at product marketing through the lens of a hiring manager. I'm so excited to welcome Amruta, plugging in from Germany and sharing her experiences today with us. Amruta and I are doing a two-part series where we'll be exploring all things product marketing, but more on this towards the end. I would like to welcome Amruta. Thank you so much for joining me. And would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, sure. First of all, thanks so much for having me. Hi, my name is Amruta. I have about over 12 years of product and brand marketing experience at this point, and I've been fortunate to have a career across the United States, Asia Pacific, and Europe. And I'm currently leading the Alexa Echo product marketing in EMEA for Amazon.
Thank you so much. I have been in the rut of finding a job in product marketing. So I am really curious to understand, do you really think the hiring process in product marketing really broken in 2025?
Okay, we're just like no preambles, just let's get right into it.
Yes.
I love it. All right. I will say that it's at least a little bit broken or at the very least misaligned. And to understand why, I think we need to take a step back. Product marketing has meant different things at different companies, right? You could be doing wildly different tasks at a matrix organization versus a small, scrappy startup. And so you have PMMs who are really experts at growth strategy, or PMMs who are doing sales enablement all day long, or PMMs who are sort of like mini CMOs for their product, right? And so that job description is extremely varied across companies. What happens though is that the job description is not reflecting that nuance. I usually see a lot of these job descriptions that are just a laundry list of all kinds of product marketing functions. And so candidates are just flying blind. They're like, you know what? I'm just going to shove everything that I have ever possibly done into my resume. And it's a disservice for both the hiring managers and for the candidates.
Yeah, that's right. I feel there's a huge gap in a good job description versus a good candidate as well. I'm sure there are many things that aspiring product marketer has to follow when they're applying for a job. But I feel there has to be some things that candidate has to do to make sure they are matching up to the expectations of a hiring manager. What are the things that you can suggest to people who are actively looking for a product marketing job? What can they do to be at the top level?
Yeah. So there is quite a few things that are very low-hanging fruits, actually. So when I talk to hiring managers, even they tell me how frustrated they are when it comes to the applications they're getting. There's so many unqualified candidates that they're coming across. And I said hiring managers, but this goes for recruiters as well. So what you can do as a person who's a PMM is really make it as easy as possible for the hiring manager to hire you. And a couple of things you can do on that front is, first of all, research the company. What is the type of company that they are? Are they product-led, sales-led, marketing-led? And then understand how your skills and experience fits into that. Right? You don't have to wait for a job description to do that. You can just go on the company website. I mean, Google, AI, ChatGPT, whatever. Like so many tools and resources now to help you do that. The second is start showing your thinking. Don't wait to be hired as a PMM to start doing that. And there's a couple of ways that you can do it. One is you can start building a portfolio of thought. So you can take existing companies and kind of reverse engineer. Here's what their positioning is today. Here's what I would do. You could even do it that for the target company that you are applying for, saying, here's what I'm seeing in your portfolio. Here's what I'm seeing on your website. Here's what I would want to come in and do A, B, C, D, E things, right? And then the last thing I would say is for product marketers to translate their impact, right? To really talk about not just, hey, I launched this feature, but talking about, hey, I created this rollout plan, which helped us expand into X vertical that all ended up getting us adoption numbers of X%, etc. Right? So really quantifying that impact so that the hiring manager who's sitting across from the table can say, oh yeah, I can see how Shruti or whoever else who's a PMM candidate is going to come in and actually shine as a PMM, is not somebody I'm going to have to handhold and micromanage. and really how, as someone who can take ownership and run with things.
Definitely, it has to be more specific. You cannot be very generic while applying to PMM jobs because every company has a very different expectation when they bring in a product marketer. And all the roles and responsibilities have to cater to what you bring as a unique value as a product marketer. So they definitely want to see your unique value as well, and also how you align with the company's current needs. And when you're applying, you have to actually step in and look it from a perspective of you're already doing the job, helping them as a PMM. I think that approach has really worked for me. And it's really good that you have highlighted that people should be envisioning themselves doing the job from the day one they apply and then see how it's more specific to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are a product marketer. You are doing positioning day in and day out. Just go ahead and apply that positioning principles to yourself.
Right.
Position yourself in the market, as competitively as possible by thinking about what is the hiring manager looking for? What is the company looking for? What is out in the market? Where do I stand? Where do I have an edge? All of these pieces.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good advice. I definitely think this is going to help a lot of PMMs out there looking for making a mark and being very unique as a candidate. So moving on, what do you think is an approach that you are able to spot an exceptional PMM candidate? Is there something that differentiates them?
Yeah, I look for strong signals in a few key areas. So, first of all, for me is storytelling. And I don't mean that just by, oh, this person can write. I think about it as more, how can this person craft compelling narratives around a product or a problem space? And this is, what I was referring to even earlier, which is show your thinking. How do they talk about their experience? Storytelling goes into some of the interview answers you're giving as well, in terms of what is the relevance of this answer to what the hiring manager is looking for. Right. So when I kind of am able to see how those dots get connected between the interview, they're able to create a compelling narrative of their own experience, but then they're also demonstrating, here's how I'm thinking about the product. Here's how I'm thinking about the product space. So it's broader. When I say storytelling, I mean that as a very broader skill set. The second thing I would have to say is also intellectual curiosity. So, PMMs, of course, are constantly working with product. And I find that the best PMMs are the ones who are pushing the why and are thinking about what is happening in the market, what are the internal dynamics, and then communicating that to product or the even different stakeholder teams, sales, customer success, etc., to build a better experience for the end customers, right? And the the last one that I will talk about is cross-functional leadership. So product marketing is not an average role. Your success very much depends on your ability to get inputs from your stakeholders. So what I am looking for is have they actually led alignment across product, sales, marketing, or even just if you're pivoting into a product marketing role, have you led alignment across different cross-functional teams that you didn't have a direct authority over or a direct reporting line with, right? Or are you just getting invited to meetings and then you're just doing what you're told? I'm looking for those nuances and that ownership in terms of understanding that my success is dependent on the cross-functional relationships and leadership that I can take and walk forward with.
Right. So just to wrap up, it's storytelling, it's intellectual curiosity, and then collaboration among all the team members.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel it has become very difficult to showcase how you collaborate with other PMMs because on personal level, I feel it's an action step. Like you are a collaborator. You don't show it, hey, I'll talk to all these team members. So how do you communicate this as your experience while you are talking about, past experiences in a job interview? How would you communicate you are a good collaborator? What's one quality you would see?
Yeah, I think you're right that it's not like, oh, I collaborated with this person, or I collaborated. It of course then it sounds very fluffy.
Yeah.
But I think if you're able to articulate, here's a cross-functional project I had, or here's a launch that I was working on, and this is where the process broke down. Here's how I worked to resolve the issues that were happening. There were differences of opinion, but I brought all of these people together on a consensus and drove that consensus, or I was able to articulate what the problem was and then get buy-in from I don't know, the customer service team or the success team or the sales team to then say, okay, let's go and solve this problem in this format or framework and get behind my plan and roll it out, right? So you're talking about your experience, but then you're talking about how you had inputs from different stakeholders and how did you gain those inputs? Or you're talking about how you brought all of those different stakeholders together to then move forward on your GTM plan. So those are the ways that you can demonstrate the ability to lead cross-functional projects for yourself.
I think most PMMs have been stuck on this question for a long time. Are you saying the right things when they're asking about collaboration? Are you saying all the right things when they want to hear that you will actually be working as a collaborator? It's not an IC role. You cannot do everything on your own. So I feel your approach is something that all candidates should be taking notes on, and definitely it's going to really help them a lot.
Yeah, I think, I think cross-functional leadership, I know that when we're junior PMMs, senior PMMs, or basically even solo PMMs, regardless of your title, I know that there's this tendency to be like, well, I'm an IC, but the reality
Yeah.
is that that's not true. Product marketing has been, will always continue to be a
True.
cross-functional role. And the more you can take ownership and show that you can actually drive cross-functional outcomes without escalating it constantly to your manager, the more successful you will be. Every hiring manager's dream is I hire this person and then they just run with it and then come to me when they have blockers.
Exactly.
Not that I have to sit and now manage this additional person as if I'm not having enough tasks in my day as it is.
Yeah, that's right. I think I have also evolved as a PMM because I started from a content writer and then got to a PMM role, and it was an
Okay.
individual contributor role. I was the solo PMM. So I was in that mindset. I'll do it all on my own. You don't need to communicate, you don't need to do all of that. And this was one of the biggest pain points for me. Like, I have not communicated what I've done, in terms of metrics, in terms of even the changes in product story. I have not been able to communicate it, and now it feels broken. The internal marketing is not happening the way I want it to be ultimately. So that those were one of the first few years of me in the PMM role, and I feel I have also evolved as a collaborative PMM, I would say, and then it shows when people are more in sync, teams are more in sync. It's really important to have that skill. And now that we are talking about evolving as a PMM, I feel you have been in this marketing space for more than 12 years. And do you feel PMM role has evolved? Do you think there have been changes from what it used to be and what it is now?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that I'm very excited about is that product marketing in general is evolving from a support function to more of a strategic role. So in the past, I've had people saying, "Hey, can you come and write this one pager for us really quickly?" It used to be frustrating sometimes because I was like, "I'm not your slide monkey." Like, it used to make me cringe. There were of course times when it was required, times when it wasn't as of an urgent situation. But overall, right now, what I'm seeing is that product marketing is more of a strategic role. The role is now evolving into, hey, help us shape the narrative of how we are in the market, guide us on the product roadmap, bring us the insights we need to create a product that stands out and has an edge over the competition, right? So that is very exciting for me. What that also means is product marketing now is getting closer and closer to the core business strategy, right? So in the past, potentially, it was like product marketing would sit under product would, build the product and then say, hey, go launch this. And then, the product marketer is scrambling to try and launch it. Now that's not happening so much. Product and product marketing are kind of like lockstep with each other, building together, right? And they're both having communication across in an ideal scenario, right? So what that means for product marketers is a couple of different things. That one, your foundational skills are still just as relevant today, right? You still have to be data driven. You still have to be product curious. You still have to be able to craft a killer positioning, narrative, messaging, things like that. But then now the emphasis is more on the soft skills. And I hate saying the word soft skills because it's, it makes it sound like it's not as necessary. But the point I'm trying to say is that more and more product marketers are not just, because they're not this support function anymore, they need to be able to go and earn trust across the org, right? They need to be able to build that relationship with the product, with with sales, with customer success, and say, hey, when we partner together, we actually increase the odds of both of our successes. Right?
Right.
And so when I say building relationships and things like that, I just don't mean, popping into Slack and then saying, hey, can you give me your feedback? That's one way of doing it. But the other way, which has really worked well for me is in the past, is partnering with them early on and co-creating. So I've done workshops where I've brought in cross-functional stakeholders, where I've laid out, here's the product that we're going to launch. And of course, product is building it as we speak. But let's talk about what this means in terms of the messaging that we want to do. What are your inputs? What are your considerations? What are your concerns? And then when you're co-creating things like that, it just makes it more of a shared success story. And then everybody wants to partner and make that into a success.
Yeah, I think
Right?
that's really important when you're doing all things as a product marketer. And I feel there are so many things that you're doing. Even a day in the life of a product marketer is something that's always different every day. Like partnering with product team and then the other day you're partnering with sales team, then I feel it has to make sense and you have to be really understanding with all the team members that you're working with. So I just wanted to add a follow up on that. Do you think one skill or an approach that has to be a non-negotiable as a product marketer when you are hiring for that role?
Yeah. So as I said, that product marketing is moving from a support function into a more strategic function.
Yeah.
What that also means then is that executive presence is no longer optional. This is something I coach my clients on as well, saying, hey, you have to be able to do better executive storytelling. Because you're more of a strategic role now, you just aren't doing, I did ABC tasks. It's more about how your work is moving the needle for the business. So being able to articulate that, and especially if you're in a smaller startup or if you're a solo PMM, this becomes a lot more of an onus that if you want that level of strategy work or if you want that level of ownership, then you need to be able to communicate at that level as well.
Okay.
And in
Perfect.
all
I think
honesty, this is also something I'm learning every day. So I've done it at smaller companies, at bigger companies, and then I came to Amazon, which is just like a whole different beast of its own. So learning executive presence and storytelling at all of those different levels has been really fun for me. And there are places where I'm like, yeah, I'm able to flex my skills. And then there are places where I'm seeing that this is a learning opportunity.
that's so nice. I'm sure like startup product marketing is way different than working in an enterprise, such a big brand, and definitely the expectations from the role are also different. Do you feel that how you approach as a product marketer or while working in the product marketing team, is there a difference when you're actually approaching a startup or when you're working in a huge organization like Amazon?
So cool. Yeah, Shruti, you're absolutely right. In my experience, I've seen that there's a big difference between startup culture and then big matrixed orgs and big tech, let's call it. So the first thing I will say is probably speed. So in a startup, there's just a fewer number of stakeholders to align, so you can get buy-in really quickly and you can run with things. There's also a lot more things that you own, especially if you're a solo PMM. So again, the speed with which you can execute on things is faster relative to matrix organizations where just a lot more stakeholders, a lot more decision making at different levels before something can get greenlit. That's not to say things don't move fast over there. It's just at a startup, it has been it could be lightning speed compared to a big tech company. The second thing I would say is probably consistency. So matrix tech organizations, they just have a lot more set targets that are not changing as much versus I will say that at smaller places that I have been at, I have experienced a bit of whiplash with the changing targets, the change in direction from time to time, things like that. And probably the third difference I will say is that at startups, there's just more of this tendency of we don't know what will work or not work. So just build it, see what's breaking, see what's working, and then refine and iterate from there. Versus at larger companies that I've been at, there's a lot more thought process involved. There's a lot more rationale and data. One, there's a lot more of that available, but then two, you have to really justify what you're going to do, what your proposal is, because it's also going to get that much scrutiny at different stakeholder levels as well.
Yeah, I have been on the startup side always. So many things keep changing all the time, and you have to just adapt to it very quickly. You have to be very data backed. You have to be very, thoughtful about what you are proposing. I feel
Yeah.
this step is really important when you are in a huge tech versus when you are a startup. You can be very experimental, but the responsibility is very different when it comes to both of these worlds.
Yeah, for sure. But it's fun in both of them.
So, one very last question that I would ask you in terms of the emerging trends when it comes to product marketing, do you really feel that will be very important for the to be a successful product marketer?
Yeah. Look, one of the things I will caveat at the outset is that product marketing is going through a bit of a renaissance, if you will. Things that I'm saying today might not be relevant in 6 months. We don't know. There is just
Yes.
so much that's changing.
Yeah.
But a couple of call outs on this one. The first, of course, is AI, right? AI is going to transform all of our jobs. That's a given. Product marketers, though, what they can adopt in terms of a mindset is not that AI is working against you, but how can you make it work for you? Now, I don't mean just, having better prompting, but think about all the use cases that you could potentially apply it for, competitive intelligence or testing or refining your narrative, things like that. But then take it one step further, right? Don't outsource all your thinking to AI. Think about AI having this generic output that it gives you, and then you're fine tuning it with your GTM knowledge, with your knowledge of personas, things like that. The way I like to coach my clients when I'm talking to them about this is let AI be the one that writes the first draft, but you're the one who's bringing those insights.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of the trends. The second trend, I think, is around product marketing specialization. And this has been a very interesting trend for me personally, because so much of my product marketing career has been as a generalist. So I was flexing skills across a lot of different types of work, right? So I was doing video production, and I was doing customer research, and I was doing sales enablement, and I was doing GTM, and I was doing product launches, so many different things. Now, what I'm seeing though is that you have a lot more companies wanting specialization. And I don't just mean specialization by industry where it's like, oh, we're fintech vertical or things like that. I'm also meaning skill sets. So you can see specialization as a product marketer who's doing only sales enablement or only competitive intelligence. Things like that as well, right? So it's moving from a lot more of these generic or generalist playbooks to more of that tailored storytelling. Yeah. And this is also where I really wish that recruiters would become more and more open to candidates from non-PMM backgrounds, right? So if there's so much requirement, if there's this requirement of like a PMM being able to go really deep into an industry, into a use case, into a persona, if that person already has 5 years of product marketing experience, they're not going to come in as a junior product marketer. Yet those are the kinds of job descriptions I see sometimes.
Exactly.
You see people saying,
Crazy.
come in as a junior product marketer, but you need to have 5 years of crypto experience, right? It's like, but why would this person want to come in as a junior marketer, right? So this is where recruiters also, I would love recruiters, hiring managers to just be more open to people who are from, let's say, PMM adjacent backgrounds, content, ops, sales, customer success. They've done a lot of the work that has overlaps and can probably come in but have that industry knowledge that you're looking for as well. So it could be a good sort of best of both worlds sort of situation for you as well. And then the last trend I will talk about is holistic GTM. So we are used to hearing there's a product issue, that's a product management problem. It's a lead gen issue, that's a marketing problem. There's a win-loss issue, that's a sales problem. But the fact is that these are all GTM problems.
Yeah.
So for me, it's increasingly about product marketers becoming owners of a holistic GTM. They're at the center of this hub and spoke model when it comes to GTM, right? They're like that central source of knowledge across product, sales, customer service, all these different parts of the organization, and then taking GTM out into the market. So as we're thinking about that, then if product marketers are the hub, this means that PMMs are the ones who can also then drive more of those holistic GTM outcomes. And so the more the teams can collaborate on alignment activities together, the more there's an opportunity to maximize the revenue or the overall potential, right? Overall organizational goals. And that also means that product marketers are more and more empowered to drive those outcomes. It's not just, oh, you are supposed to be the hub of this big GTM model, but you have zero ability to actually execute on it.
Yeah.
So it has to be a balance of that. And I'm hoping that this is going I've started seeing this already in some companies, but I'm hoping that more and more companies will adopt this approach to it.
Yeah. I think it's really important as well because it's not only you want the product marketing team to be successful, but you want the entire GTM strategy to be really successful. That it makes an impact, whatever you're doing. So I
Yeah.
feel it's really important. And sadly, this marks the end of my questions specifically, but I had a really good time, Amrita, today. I loved talking about product marketing from a recruiter's and hiring manager's perspective. I think it's a very interesting time to be in product marketing right now, and I'm sure all the things that you have suggested today are going to be of really value to all of those product marketers.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I'm really excited for where product marketing is going.
Yeah.
And as I said, I have been this kind of generalist product marketer. I've had the Swiss Army knife of skills, and I really have fun. Like, yes, there are times where it's frustrating, but net sum, I have fun being like this, problem solver, trying to go around, trying to be like, okay, how can we maximize this for our company? It's fun to
Absolutely.
do that.
Do you wish to plug in that you also mentor product marketers? And I would love to add on your LinkedIn profile and also any links that you want to share with the people who are listening today. You can reach out to Amruta directly for all your questions related to product marketing. And Amruta, over to you. Do you want to talk about what you're doing currently?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. So, couple of things that I'm doing these days. One is I'm on LinkedIn. I think this is how we also met.
Yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm meeting a lot more product marketers, having conversations with them. And then I'm also coaching product marketers on just being able to manage the product marketing work without stress and anxiety and overwhelm that comes with the job,
Yeah.
but also helping aspiring product marketers who are not necessarily having a product marketing background pivot into that as well. So you can find all of those details on my LinkedIn profile. And yeah, let's go from there.
Absolutely. And also, Amrita shares a lot of really good research content on LinkedIn. So everyone should follow her and take notes.
Thanks so much for that shout out.
Thank you so much, Amrita. I had a lovely time today. And also, obviously, for part two, we are also coming up with a surprise. So I'll share out the details pretty soon about what we are coming up with the part two. I hope part one was really good for everybody listening. And thank you for joining in today. Stay tuned for part two.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Yes, looking forward to it.